of this.
I'm so confused. So we don't lose any.
I'm not sure what that has to do with anything, but
it's okay. Idea.
It's all yours.
Oh my God. All right, Julie, you start us off.
okay. Well, welcome everyone. As Christy would say, happy Tuesday. And I'll say it too. Happy Tuesday. This is Julie Larson, and today I'm kicking things off while Christy, cheers
I'm sitting
me on.
back. That's
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It's your turn.
And we are back with our very own Neil Lyons by popular demand. He's back. And we are returning to a theme that we just got underway, in which we invoke pop culture and try to weave that into, fascinating details of the law. So I'm calling this our popular blog posts that we've morphed into popular podcasts, where we talk about all things pop culture. It's very important that I pronounce my P's with emphasis. Anyway,
right. Puntastic.
I think if you listen, our loyal listener, you'll remember that in episode 8 we had Neil on, and we talked about all kinds of things, including the whole Britney Spears. That was sort of maybe the impetus and the birth of our pop culture invocation.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about another pop icon this time, and that's Taylor Swift, who's currently on tour and by all accounts puts on quite a show. Anyway, she has a current top 40 hit. It's the anti-hero song. I'm not going to try to sing it because, yeah.
Neil, do you want to sing it? Do it.
I don't really know the song that well because as you know, it's not the kind of music I listen to. But I will tell you this: Britney Spears and I have something kind of in common, right? So, it was sort of one of those things from one of her old songs. I can't remember what it was called, but it was almost like she wasn't the popular girl, but the cheer captain was the popular girl. And I think I had this crush on the cheerleading captain in high school, and she was definitely in short skirts, and I wore t-shirts. She was cheer captain, and I most certainly was in the bleachers. So it was one of those things. It definitely resonated with me.
So you're talking about Taylor Swift, though, not Britney, right? You said Britney.
Yes. This is no.
Taylor's
I did say Taylor.
song.
Yeah, you did say Britney.
You said Britney.
It's really
either way. I don't listen to either of their songs.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Well, we're gonna make you.
But I do know the lyrics.
Okay. Well, right.
Taylor Swift
Okay. Because you've actually written a blog about this, as I recall. I think it recently hit the airways.
I sure did. I think I sure did. Yeah, I sure
anyway,
did. And it was fun.
There is a part of the anti-hero song in which she sings about how, well, I'm just going to read the actual lyrics. I have this dream my daughter-in-law kills me for the money. She thinks I left them in the will. The family gathers round and reads it, and then someone screams out, she's laughing at us up from hell. Anyway, that ties into the kind of stuff Neil does, right, Neil?
That's right. I mean, I don't.
Sort
yes,
of.
as far as wills are concerned, but I don't have anybody kill anybody for the money. I do not do that.
Fair
I am
enough.
in no way
Best
affiliated
practices.
with the mafia or anything like that.
Right.
But yes, it is what I do. Absolutely.
Well,
and I would probably counsel people on that situation too.
Sure.
If they ever asked, right?
No,
legal
if they
disclaimer.
Ask, that'd be very interesting.
Right. Legal disclaimer. Right. We're not promoting murder.
No, we're not, because we're invoking the Florida's Slayer statute,
right.
Which pretty much I'm sure every state has one of these, in which it basically says, yeah, if you murder someone, if your daughter-in-law murders you, even if she was mentioned in your will, she'd be out of luck, right?
That's 100% correct. That's right. Florida Slayer statute is actually, it's under Florida statute 732.802, in case anybody is wondering where to find it. It says it's basically killer not entitled to receive property or other benefits by reason of victim's death. So it says if you are the procurer or you somehow you're responsible for the victim's death under an unlawful or intentional killing, or the participation in procuring the unlawful or intentional killing of the victim, and you happen to be a beneficiary of that person's will, You can't take
Life insurance.
life insurance. If you have a joint ownership in a house, or bank accounts or anything like that, or any other kind of contractual arrangement, you're not going to get what you're looking to get.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. And if you happen to be married to this person that you're contemplating killing, I'm going to encourage you to consider just getting a divorce,
Right.
where you can
Yes,
divide up the property.
Who among us has
There
not
are-
contemplated? Never mind.
Don't go there, Christy.
I
We're recording this.
Withdrawn.
But there's a really, really awful case that just happened earlier this year. I believe this couple lived in Massachusetts. The wife had whatever her career was, she really worked out of DC, and on New Year's Day she disappeared, ostensibly because she got called back to work on some kind of emergency. But after she, was missing for a few days, people started to get a little suspicious. And one thing led to another, and shockingly, the husband was one of the, primary suspects. And as things unfolded, just the details that came out, just horrible. For example, he grabbed his son's iPad. I think his son was, like under 10, and he starts Googling these provocative questions like, how long before a body starts to smell? How to stop a body from decomposing? 10 ways to dispose of a dead body if you really need to. There was some video footage of him at the Home Depot in which he's all like camouflaged up, and he's shopping for cleaning supplies. I mean, the details just kept, trickling out, and it just got more and more gruesome. So I think I don't think he's been convicted yet. So he's still presumed innocent, but I would venture to say it's not looking so great for Mr. Brian Walsh.
Yeah, so I think you did cap that off with an allegedly, which is probably the best way that we as attorneys know how to do these things, since he hasn't either A, pled guilty, nolo contendere, or been found guilty of any of this. But allegedly, I have
Correct.
no idea why in the world he would leave a breadcrumb trail like this. I mean, for starters, I mean, this is obviously a tragedy. This is somebody's mother that was murdered, and it's obviously a tragedy. But I just cannot get over the fact that this person would just say, leave a breadcrumb trail, all leading to himself about how long before a body starts to smell. Well, why in the world would anybody be doing that, right? Maybe there's an innocent explanation for it. I'm not a criminal defense attorney. Maybe the son was looking some things up because he heard about it in science class. But
Yeah,
sure.
In
law, coincidences are quite rare, especially in what we do. So it's yeah. I just
right.
Yeah.
Well, in the Slayer statute, this is, I'm right, Neil, that it actually requires an actual final judgment of murder. I mean, it actually requires not just the accusation.
There is a caveat, though, where I think if for some reason the person isn't convicted of the murder, obviously in a criminal case, the standard of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt. A court can still invoke the consequences of the Slayer statute if, by greater weight of the evidence, they feel as if this person is responsible for an unlawful or intentional killing. So,
and that's an extremely low bar.
Like directed verdict? Or are you talking in a civil case? I actually don't know in this capacity.
Most likely, it's going to be the probate court making this type of a determination, whether or not the person's entitled to receive, or unless it's been shifted over to the civil court. I mean, the statute does say a final judgment and conviction of murder in any degree is conclusive for purposes of this section. So obviously the conviction is going to hit. But in the absence of a conviction, as Julie was just saying, you're talking about a court determining whether or not there's a greater weight of the evidence, whether or not the unlawful killing for intentional purposes was committed by the person they think committed it. So, and greater weight of the evidence, if memory serves, that's preponderance. That's just 50% plus a feather. Plus a feather. That's not much. Yeah. That's really not a high threshold.
And that's the probate court can do that?
Well, in terms of losing your benefits, I mean, I guess the law probably just is as if that person predeceased the decedent, and therefore whatever secondary what the alternative, beneficiaries or what have you are the
Right.
ones who ultimately.
Well, I suppose my question was more because typically when you've got a case like this, almost always you see a civil action in conjunction with the criminal, the state bringing the criminal action. It's surprising to me that a lot of people don't understand that there's a criminal action. A human being, a person cannot bring a criminal action. It's a state, but there's typically the human aspect, the civil aspect is brought kind of in conjunction with the criminal. And so question being, are we talking like in a civil court if that adjudication is made, or if really the probate judge, the probate court can say when we've got everybody fighting over where the assets go?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what would happen, and there would be a challenge basically to the quote unquote killer's right to take by a beneficiary who otherwise would be eligible to take. So if it's, let's just say in this particular example, you have two adult children and you have a mother and a father, and the father happens to kill the mother, those two adult beneficiaries who would likely take under the mom's will if the father hadn't done what he did, they would be the ones bringing that challenge. They would say, listen, he's not an eligible beneficiary because of XYZ. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to say that he is not eligible to take because there is sufficient evidence to prove that he procured or he was the reason why this person our mother was unlawfully killed, essentially. And that's how it would be done.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be done either in the probate context. You'd have to obviously notify the probate court that it's an adversarial proceeding, or they could actually just shift it over to the civil side.
Yeah, well, for instance, maybe there's some contractual beneficiaries.
I would love to actually see this in operation. I don't want to see anybody killed. Let me just take this back. Hold on a minute here. Yeah, no, I'm not a rubbernecker when it comes to car accidents. As a matter of fact, I try to go straight and just not look at a thing. But the point being, it would be interesting to see if the person gets off, exactly what would happen. If someone's trying to challenge them. I mean, you can't difference. That's exactly what happened in the OJ situation. Again, OJ wasn't trying to inherit anything from Nicole Brown Simpson. He wasn't eligible, but they had plenty of evidence civilly that he that he wrongfully killed or was responsible for the wrongful death of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman. So that's kind of probably what might happen in this particular case. Right, it's kind of a similar patterning.
Yeah,
just the cause of action would be different.
Yeah, I was just thinking like to do a case study or kind of see how far that's gone, or even if that type of determination has been made in a probate court, seeing how many times that's been appealed or how far that's gone as well. Because that would be interesting. Just sheer curiosity.
Well, when we do our next podcast, I'll give you all an update on that.
We will have prepared. Okay. Let's do
that.
Well, no,
I did ask somebody who's been involved in numerous probates and a probate litigator
that I know. Encountered this?
She has not. No, she has not. She's not really aware of anybody that has either. It is.
Right.
It's quite rare. But the statute's there for a reason, right? So obviously someone tried to do this at some point in time, Someone tried to do this. They tried to collect while they were in prison, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure,
living the life.
It's interesting. This layer, well, not interesting. This is awfully morbid conversation, but
it really
it is interesting.
It is interesting. What we do,
well,
what we do.
like with life insurance policies, you can direct the beneficiary and you can stay out of probate. But the life insurance policy, it's a contractual agreement, so it actually says under what circumstances it'll pay and not. Obviously, the statute takes precedence here, but the statute has to do with the killing of another. And
that's right.
Life insurance policies, some of them actually say, for instance, suicide. We don't pay on suicide. Other ones don't. So maybe rather than
waiting periods,
maybe rather than Googling how long before a body starts to smell, we should Google.
Curious minds want to know what you're thinking, Christy.
If I unlawfully kill somebody, am I going to collect?
Let's not go there.
Amazing Hartford life insurance policy that I'm due at least a cool mill on. I'm going to go ahead and say no. You're not going to be able to do that. You can Google me. I'll solve that mystery right here. The answer is no. You're not going to be able to collect that.
Just
because it says right here. It says right here, actually in the statute, life insurance policy is included in there, so they actually cut it off. Even if the Hartford
any contractual benefit.
Yes, that's right. Even if the Hartford or whatever life insurance company it may be, that's not a plug. That just happened to come to my mind. I don't endorse any of those companies.
Well-
even if they wanted to, they couldn't do it.
Well,
They could try.
yes. What we would,
I mean, yeah.
never mind.
I'm back to like,
Terrible.
if it's your husband or your spouse, why don't just get a divorce?
Well,
Much
that's
easier
always a
than
good
murder.
conversation. That's always a good conversation to have. Why do you want to get a divorce? Now, I imagine that the reasoning is not going to be something like, let's see, irreconcilable differences, although that's what you should put. Maybe you could actually say, why do you want to get a divorce? Because I'm going to kill him
Right.
if you do not grant this, period.
So I
That
don't kill my
I-
spouse.
is a-
I
a
think that's
deeply
irreconcilable
honest-
differences. It's just
Yeah.
there's a spectrum.
Well, like Murray
That's
from
true.
Clueless, sometimes you just have to keep it real. And,
Oh my God, I love that movie. I haven't
sometimes
seen
you
it
just
in
got to keep it
forever.
real. That's it.
Well,
I'm going to
maybe-
kill my spouse if we don't get divorced. There you go. There you go.
Let's keep moving.
We'll ask Laura about that when we have her on next.
Yeah.
I
Right.
really want to hear what she says about that.
Pop
Oh
culture.
gosh, we have to have both of you on at the same time at some point and just see where conversation takes us in a
Oh,
circle.
that's scary.
Isn't it?
Mhm.
What
Let's
else?
talk about some other pop culture icons and things like that, and weave in the importance of estate planning or failing to, and so on and so forth. So,
Mhm.
who should we start with, Neil?
I am fascinated by the Prince situation because I can't believe he didn't have a will. I mean, Prince,
He was very
anybody who
controlling.
grew up. Yeah, I mean, he was, yeah, I know. And
Of
which
his
is
stuff.
surprises me.
Right.
Which surprises me why he wouldn't have a will or at least a trust or something, some sort of an ownership interest, whatever. Maybe it's just not something he thought about. I mean, anybody that knows Prince, I mean, the guy was like galactic in the 80s. I mean, he
Creative
was
genius.
massive.
Mhm. But did the
I don't
artist
know.
formerly known as Prince have a will?
Neither of them did.
Not that I know. Neither personality had a will, from what I understand.
Maybe the
No.
fentanyl was a problem too. Clouded
Poor
his
guy.
judgment. Yeah.
Well,
It happens.
I mean, it killed. Isn't that what killed him?
Yeah. He died
Then
of
it
a
was a
fentanyl
problem.
overdose.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of getting his affairs taken care of,
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, so he died
Well,
without a
yeah.
will.
That's right.
And
Did
he
he
wasn't
died without
he
a will.
wasn't married. He didn't have kids.
Mm-mm.
He had a number of half siblings, I believe.
That's right.
And I'm not even it took, so as I recall, it took quite some time for his estate to get resolved. And it wasn't
There
so
were,
much
yeah.
because these half siblings were necessarily fighting. It was
There were other people saying that they were related to him. There were other people trying to claim. There were some people trying to
claiming
claim
relation.
that he was their father. I think one young man from Colorado, I think, tried to claim that he was Prince's son, which would have meant that he was going to get everything
Mhm.
right.
if he was
right.
his son. So, and I mean, look, and if you're a lawyer and you're sitting here listening to this, a probate litigator, and you say, okay, who do you think is your dad? Prince. Okay, you think Prince is your dad? It's probably worth that attorneys. I mean, like, can you explain to me why you think that way? Well, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Here are all the reasons why. That attorney's like, hey, why not? Let's give it a try.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to go ahead and take this on contingency, maybe.
Mhm.
And what's 33% of 156 million? I mean, that's a bit. That's a bit. So why not?
Yeah.
Give it a shot.
Yeah.
I mean, they
The-
swung and they missed on that one.
The real issue, though, or one of the reasons it took so long, was to try to come up with a value for his estate.
Mhm. Yeah,
think,
that's an excellent
his
point too. Mhm.
Beneficiaries and the IRS were wrangling over, because he had a lot of intangible, intellectual property rights, music. I mean, he was prolific, obviously.
That's a good point. Because how do you
musician.
value that, right? And if
Yeah.
there's not liquid cash, do you put liens on future royalties coming in to people that are entitled to them? That's a really good point. How do you work that out?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, the takeaway is, if you're rich, you're uber wealthy, like Prince. I mean, there's so many important reasons to do estate planning. I think when he died, the estate tax exemption was a lot, but in the scheme of things, it's over 12 million today. Is that right, Neil?
That's
Something
right.
like
It's about 12 million. That's the lifetime exclusion amount that you could gift during your lifetime before you start actually having to pay money on on the gifts that you're actually giving. And if you're married, you actually can stack that. You can actually double it and put it at about 26 million, give or take.
If you have more than one wife, can you triple it?
I don't think that qualifies. Not yet,
Sorry.
at least. That may be coming. But not that I know of. I don't believe multi-person marriage is a valid reason. I mean, look, let's just be honest. If you've got that problem, it's what I like to call a great problem to have. It's a problem I too hope to have one day. But here's hoping.
Oh, wait, two wives or more money than?
I'm hoping it's the money and not the wives thing.
You know better than to wonder whether or not which one of those I meant. Of course,
I hope Mary's not listening.
I know. I was curious about that and thought, gosh,
she knows me way better than that. Knows there's no way.
Right.
There's no way. Could you imagine? I'm the only male in an all female law firm, and I would go home to two spouses. Now that's
I know, but you have two boys.
That's a book right there.
To be fair, Mary's the only female in your house.
Exactly.
That's very true.
And
she's well outnumbered.
Dog?
Yeah.
That's true.
You have a boy dog too.
Yeah.
He's the man. Yeah. So yeah, no, you can't. You could stack if you want to. If you can stack, you can port. It's portability that the spouse's exemption, right? But that's complicated.
The real reason I ask is if I own 3 cars, I can stack my uninsured motorist coverage.
Now we're talking.
I can triple it.
Just stack it.
Triple
it doesn't work with wives or husbands.
It's smart to be stacked.
Yes, that's one of Christy's posts. Anyway, the importance, if you're wealthy and you have a lot of money, if you have more than $12 million for sure. I think back when Prince died, though, it was like $5.5 million or something like that. Sitting down with an estate planning attorney can avoid having to pay Uncle Sam by, different strategic things you can set up with respect to all these assets you own.
That's 100% correct too. And I actually like doing that with a CPA who also is an expert. That would be a meeting that is done in conjunction with a CPA who's also an expert in post-death tax planning for estate tax purposes. I mean, that really is valuable right there, because there's a lot of things you can miss. There's exclusions that you're allowed to, there's all kinds of strategies out there. And there's nothing like a CPA at the ready to walk everybody through that.
Finding that. Yeah.
Right.
So one of the things, Neil, that we try to, I think one of our billboards locally is basically, if you don't plan it, the government will, or your laws will. So in this particular case, if Prince were a Floridian when he died and his property was in Florida, what would happen? He died without a will. What would we be looking at?
We're looking at an intestate procedure. And the other problem is who is actually going to be in charge of it? Who would be the, as we call it here, a personal representative? In other states, they call them, a lot of people know them as executors. In Florida, they call them personal representatives. That would be really, there's going to be a fight over the personal representative because they're entitled to a fee for managing, for administering that estate. And then of course the attorneys for that personal representative are going to, be entitled to a little money as well. The problem with not having a will is someone is going to have to step forward to be personal representative. And who is that going to be? And there could be imagine a huge fight over being personal representative. Who's going to be in charge of all this? Who's going to be in charge of making sure this stuff gets to where it's supposed to go? So that would be one part of the fight. Oh, it is a full-time job, especially within a state like this. This estate is bigger than multiple corporations. The value of this is bigger than multiple corporations. So you are running a $150 million business for a certain amount of time, basically. And not just anybody can do that. So that's the other thing.
I think that's what makes this topic kind of, I mean, not to like pat ourselves on the back, but pop icons and estate planning are actually an interesting fit because they tend to be quite wealthy and there tends to be a lot at stake. And when they screw things up, there's some significant consequences. Obviously, in Prince's case, it took like 6+ years to get through the probate process. And so, I mean, what year did he die? 2016. So it was only within the last year or so that I guess they finally worked all these details out. But
And like I said, too, there's a lot of people coming forward saying, hey, I'm related and therefore should take.
Yeah.
You know, there's a huge incentive to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
A will would preclude that issue. I mean, unless you're doing a direct challenge to the will, right? Somebody could directly challenge Prince's will for undue influence or for lack of capacity if he made one. But the will is going to say, this is who's in charge, and this is who is getting this, I'm going to be real here. This is who's getting my stuff, and how much, and what percentage or what share are they getting?
Right.
Essentially.
Right.
So a will would do that. A will would say, this is who's in charge, and these are the individuals that are going to receive my stuff.
Right.
Then you're not having 40 different people come forward and saying, hey, I'm related to this person.
Right.
Right. You avoid that whole thing. And well, in this, it's what's interesting is, and I guess there's a first time for everything, and I'm sure there'll be another, but Neil, we actually, you, me, and Laura were working with the same client with we won't go into the issues, but there were factors that required all three of us to sit down and answer different questions under different areas of law to try to help this woman through her situation. And one of the issues that came up was, can somebody force me to be PR to a particular estate? And no, I mean, a court is going to, when asked, it's going to assign a PR, but a court can't force someone to be a PR, correct? Personal representative?
No, I've never seen anything like that before. That usually
Why would
I've
they
never seen
want to? What would be if somebody doesn't want the job? Anyway, hey, let's talk about some other pop culture figures. So, sadly, I've got several people sort of teed up for different, I guess, lessons, but I think in every instance, drugs were involved in their ultimate demise, premature. Philip Seymour Hoffman, great actor. I think he overdosed on something, heroin. I don't know what but I do believe that's what killed him. He was an Academy Award-winning actor. He was worried about spoiling his kids, and so didn't want to create a trust with respect to his assets that would benefit his children, because the whole trust fund baby notion, which ultimately meant that his $35 million estate was also subject to going through, the whole probate process and subject to estate taxes instead of potentially avoiding taxes on some part of that. And with respect to trust, Neil, correct me if I'm wrong, you can put pretty much whatever terms you want, attach whatever terms you want to it with, regard to how your money is going to get ultimately distributed to the beneficiaries.
Yeah, and with limited circumstances, you can they're highly customizable. I mean, just you can't put clauses in there like my kids are going to be able to get this money so long as they don't marry a Catholic. Something like that would be against
as long as it's not
policy.
like against public policy. They have to be.
There you go. Exactly. So I just saw that example the other day, and that actually got tossed. So they're very, very customizable. You can do a lot with it, and the whole point is, it looks like here with Philip Seymour Hoffman is structured payouts, right? Structured payouts for specific purposes. Most trusts allow you to receive money for health, education, and maintenance and support, right? So if there's income coming into the trust, that income can be distributed out according, as long as the trust says so, for the purposes of paying a beneficiary's health, the beneficiary's education, their maintenance, or their support. Now, the interesting thing comes into play here as a side note. I've talked to trust officers who manage trust. They always wonder whether or not education means paying fraternity or sorority dues. Is that included in an education distribution? So there's always that. Make it broad, but broadness also can cause confusion as to whether something's an eligible payout. But yeah, to answer your question, these are very highly customizable.
So he could have, left some money for his kids but conditioned it on, hey, you need to go out there and, work for a living, and you're not going to just sit around and, live off.
Yeah, gainful employment. Yep, yeah. Right. Gainful employment can be one of those, conditions. Absolutely.
Could he have said, you have to, I'm leaving this in trust to you, and when you turn 25, you get $10 million, but you have to donate 5 million of it to this. Is that something he could have done?
I mean, I don't know why he wouldn't have just left a special bequeathment to that particular charity that he was looking for. Like maybe we'd say the American Heart Association, for example. I mean, what you're doing when you do that is you now make that the American Heart Association a beneficiary of, in this case, a lot of money. So now they get to be involved with that trust administration. You know, as a just go ahead, Julie.
I mean, like Bill Gates or Warren Buffett, or I mean, maybe I've got the wrong uber rich people, but they actually don't have a lot of their estates directed towards their children.
Yeah, I think Bill Gates is one of them, right? I'm pretty sure.
Probably doesn't need to. They probably have jobs.
Yeah,
they probably are all like cozied up, right? You know, you all seen that show Succession. You know, all the kids have jobs in the company. You know, what are they going to need to be left? They got jobs, you know. And I mean, it doesn't preclude them from being, I don't know what the terms of their employment are, but it doesn't preclude them from being fired if something happens to Bill Gates or Warren Buffett. You know, it doesn't preclude that, but I would imagine, you know, that's why.
I mean,
I can appreciate it. You hand them money and you want to create a different child, and I can. That's the kind of parent that I am.
Well, I mean, and a trust avoids them immediately, you know. So, which kind of brings me to the whole Whitney Houston example, because she had written
I want to dance with somebody. Oh boy, poor Whitney. I love Whitney. She was something else. She was so good.
But she wrote her will, I think, in her early on in her career. I mean, I'm not sure her daughter, if her daughter was born, she was a little one, and then her estate just grew and grew and grew. Obviously, ultimately, she tragically died. And the way she had it set up was to give a percentage to her daughter immediately upon her death, or when she turned 21, you know, a pretty young age. And so, because her estate was so huge by the time she did ultimately pass, that meant that her daughter immediately came into a lot of money. And I don't know what part this may or may not have played into it, but her daughter ultimately died only a few years after Whitney herself died. So I don't know.
Tragic circumstances and that.
Tragedy. Yeah. Double tragedy. And the wisdom of allowing young adults who are obviously old enough, legally speaking, to, you know, be an adult in the eyes of the law, but not necessarily, you know, emotionally, intellectually, whatever, equipped to suddenly have a whole bunch of money.
No, I know. That's an excellent point too, because when you look back at yourself, because when you talk, I have a lot of sympathy for clients who really want to, and then this is definitely along the same lines as Whitney. A lot of sympathy for clients who are worried about their kids getting a lot of money at a certain point in time when they're younger. Okay, because I think about myself. If I was to receive like $4 million when I'm 25, okay, I'm going crazy. I'm buying a Patek Philippe watch. I'm buying the Louis Trey bottle of bourbon, brandy. You know what I mean? I'm buying all of it. You know what I'm saying? If I'm getting that now at 42, I'm the cheapest man alive. I don't even like paying for parking at hotels now. Okay. You know what I mean? I don't even like paying convenience fees at 42. So I would be, you know, I have a lot of sympathy for clients who want to do that, because I remember me being that age, and I'm going to the Mercedes dealership and I'm buying the V12 AMG. Sorry about the environment. It happens. What are you going to do at 25? Now, you know, maybe a truck. It's more, you know, whatever.
Now you're how about a minivan, Neil?
No. You can't rock death metal in a minivan. That's not going to work. It's not going to work.
You could.
I mean, I could, but it's not a good look. I mean, it'd have to be black, and I'd have to call it the coffin wagon or something, the death wagon or something like that. I don't know.
That's a good lead into Heath Ledger.
Oh God.
Dude.
Who hadn't updated his will.
The old infant in gestation issue, right?
Yeah, and obviously when he died, he had a child. But everything went to his folks and his sister. And So it's important, every few years, certainly upon changes in your life circumstances, that you get in and sit down with someone like you, Neil. I mean,
Well,
the good news in all of
contingencies.
this is that his parents and his sister were, upstanding people, and, they made sure that his daughter was taken care of and all that sort of thing. But
Even
surely
if you don't, though, right, Julie? That's a really good point. Even if you don't update it, the contingencies, my
yes,
wills that we draft,
exactly.
we contemplate numerous
Right.
contingencies. You have a lot of clients that hold it up and say, "Why do I need this? Why do I?" Infant in gestation? There's an infant in gestation clause, right?
The fertile. Who
heirs,
remembers the fertile octogenarian rule
Mhm.
from law school? The
My
80-year-old who
heirs
has a baby.
include, yep, my heirs include infants that are, excuse me, a child that is gestating at the time of my death, right? So that it includes my unborn child. It includes
After-born
it.
children.
Yep. And so that it sounds like his will did not contemplate that situation, unfortunately.
Well, and for men, it's a lot more possible than, than for women.
I think that is
biologically, men can father children for a lot longer than women can mother them.
It's probably only it's 95% of the time appropriate with men. I was stalling out a second because I was working the math out in my head, Chrissy. That's why I was stalling. It's not because anything is wrong with me. I was trying to figure out. I was trying to make sure.
Watching you squirm.
There's something wrong with all of us. It's fine.
I was like, well, how would it work with a woman? But I could see a situation where a lady creates a trust. Oh, I don't even want. God forbid she gets in a car accident and she's 8 months pregnant, and then the baby has to be delivered and she passed away. That's a situation where it would work for women. Because I was trying to think in my head, well, I don't know that it would matter for a woman. It's like, wait, actually, it could. It could actually matter for a woman. She could have that will. My unborn child, I happen to, God forbid, a car accident, and then my baby has to be delivered, but I don't make it. Boom. But that baby now isn't. It takes.
Yeah.
So there's a situation where it would work for a woman.
It would, but if we've got a woman creating her, a will and a trust and all of that at 50 or 55, or the likelihood is we're not gonna.
We're getting the probabilities
anymore.
are getting lower. But I did hear about a woman the other day in her 50s having a child.
Well, yeah, I think there's all kinds of signs. You never know what science can do.
It's true. And I'm not saying as a safety net, obviously included everywhere, but yeah, and I can't fathom
mothers?
having a baby in my 50s. I can't fathom having a baby in my 40s. So.
Whatever time you have a child, the whole point is you better set aside $1 million to $2 million. That's all there is to it.
You have that figured out.
Because this is ridiculous. Man.
I have to go back and look now. I have to go back and look at what I've spent on
$200 of flag football plus a convenience fee to pay the darn thing online. That's my favorite part, right?
Why don't you write a check, Neil, and avoid the convenience fee?
That's the point. There's only one way to pay. I can't believe it.
Oh, you can't avoid the convenience fee.
No, there's only one way to pay. Nothing convenient about it. It's a scam. Another scam.
I bet you there's going to be a class action. Watch.
I can't. I don't have the time to get involved in that. I'm busy.
Nobody has the time.
Your $2.50.
It's just the attorneys who, anyway.
Yes, convenience fee. Those greedy trial lawyers.
So, but it is what it is, right? So, the Heath Ledger situation was tragic just because, out of nowhere that happened, right? Out of nowhere it happened, and then of course his wife. I'm sorry, they weren't married, were they?
They weren't married. No.
That's right. But she was pregnant, and what do you do in that situation? Like you said, thank God his family did the right thing, made sure that his daughter was taken care of, and that's a happy ending. But a lot of times people aren't so nice.
You'd think that would be the default. It's not.
No, as I say, if people got along, we wouldn't have a job.
True.
That's look, tomorrow
so
if everybody
thrive
started
on adversity,
doing everything. Yeah, conflict is currency. Right?
Or you meet with someone like you to avoid a future conflict.
Right. Avoid it.
Strategically planning how to.
Well, think about this, right? We just talked about Prince. 40 some odd people wondered whether or not they were related to him. Are you kidding me? For real? How do you wonder whether you're related to Prince? It's like your mom pull you aside and be like, that man right there singing Purple Rain, you're his sister. Nuh-uh. Yeah. And then what? Hey, yeah, my mom told me I was related to him. You know, I just don't get the whole point is conflict, currency, money.
Mhm.
You know,
Well,
if Prince died with $1,500 in the bank, you think 40 people are coming forward to say I'm related to the guy? No.
Yeah.
No.
I mean,
No
I'd
one would
love to
know
be
who he
surprised.
is.
Yeah.
I'd love to be surprised.
He would have died a pauper, not a prince.
Oh, dang, that's good, Julie. That's really good.
That was very well done.
And then he would have been introduced on SNL. Ladies and gentlemen, Pauper.
Mhm.
There we go.
Did anybody else see the entire the night that he died, at least in Bradenton, Florida? I don't know if either of you saw
did
it,
not
but the
see it.
entire I looked outside and it was purple outside. I'm not kidding. The entire sky was kind of overcast, rainy. I don't know what it was, but it was purple, not like
Eerie.
purple. Yeah, out in my backyard, I saw it. It's the strangest thing.
Mm.
Oh, what a send off. Well, yeah, what a send off for an artist.
I took a picture. I think it's on social media. I took a picture of it and went, "Are you? Huh? Yeah."
Well, I'll look forward to looking that up using somebody else's password.
I know,
So,
Mister. I don't do social media. You're tagged a
no.
lot. Law powered by women and Neil.
Yeah.
People don't even need to know people don't need to know what I'm doing. I got nothing really important to say. I mean, I think
Yeah.
I may have had a Twitter account years ago. and all I
You
was doing
actually
was-
do have a Facebook account. I found it recently. Don't ask me.
You're on
how.
MySpace, aren't you? You
I
were.
was on MySpace at one time.
Yeah, you were. Yeah,
I
you
was
were.
on MySpace at one. Everybody was doing it.
I wasn't.
Oh, I don't.
All right,
I
well, let's
wasn't.
talk about some other pop culture figures for some other.
Do we have
Let's
time?
hit on some. Let's
Gosh,
hit on
we've
real
been-
quick some other lessons, real quick. So,
Okay.
who remembers FloJo, the Olympic runner, Florence?
Yeah, she
Griffith
was
Joyner?
awesome.
Fast. She had a will. Good for her. Good planning, Flo. The problem? Nobody could find it.
Oh.
So it took a long time. So the lesson obviously is,
Make sure somebody has your will.
yeah. Or
There's actually a
they
blog
know
article
where
on
it
that.
is.
Mhm.
You,
I
you
wrote
don't
a
want it
blog
in your
about that.
safety deposit box. but-
No, I told everybody. I said I wrote a will because of that exact. I wrote a will.
You
I
wrote a
wrote.
blog.
Thank you. I did write a will too, but I wrote a blog about that. Let your beneficiaries or somebody that you trust know where this stuff is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because if they can't find it, the last thing you need is everybody scrambling to find out where the heck this is.
Mhm.
But yeah, we as lawyers, the local bar association periodically sends out a blast asking if anybody knows the whereabouts of some recently deceased person's will.
Mhm.
Who may have it, because oftentimes attorneys will hold them.
Mhm.
Yeah,
so.
it's one of those things where I don't like doing it because it makes you the custodian.
Well,
Right.
right.
Custodian means you have to, as soon as you find out that person died, you have to get that original will to the courthouse, or excuse me, to the clerk's office. You got 10 days to do it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, and that's a huge responsibility.
Anyway,
You know-
and then so two other good sorts of topics. Who everybody remembers Joan Rivers and the sort of the tragic. She was really into plastic surgery.
Mhm.
And I think things went wrong. But fortunately, she had the sort of corollary documents you get when you get a will, a power of attorney, a living will, and that sort of thing. And so her daughter was able to make crucial decisions quickly, as needed, given her, sort of the tragedy, and not have to go to court, which obviously takes time.
Mhm.
I mean, well, look, what can you say about a woman who had impeccable fashion taste, right? She had impeccable taste in estate planning as well, obviously, so she wasn't going to leave anything to chance.
Mhm.
Right. And then the last thing that's just, I suppose, purely kind of interesting is, and there's not any particular requirement, but if you know what you want done at your death, like, do you want a big fancy funeral, or do you want to be cremated, or not, share that information. Two sort of extreme examples, Mickey Rooney, Casey Kasem, who are like old guys that were around. Casey Kasem was America's Top 40. Mickey Rooney was like a child actor. Anyway, I think they had multiple marriages and there was familial conflict. And so after they died, because they hadn't left any instructions on, what kind of last farewell they wanted, there was a lot of strife and fighting, and it took months or maybe even years to actually get to the point of having a funeral service. On the other hand, Muhammad Ali and David Bowie had very exquisite plans in place, and their celebrations of life were in accordance with their wishes. So
Yeah, Bowie sort of went. Nobody really knew that he was sick. You know what I mean?
yeah, he's
I
very
remember
private.
that. Yeah, he was a very private person. I kind of remember that too because, I'm obviously a big music person, and Bowie's like, huge. You know what I mean? I mean, Ziggy Stardust.
Right.
So it's like that was rough. And Ali, of course, larger than life. I mean, there was no way Ali wasn't going out without a bang. I mean, that's how he lived. He was, he was the greatest. But you actually can put that in your will. I do it for clients often, right? Treatment of bodily remains is what we call it. I wish there was a more elegant way of saying it, but we just listen, like Murray and Clueless, we keep it real. Just keep it real. Treatment of bodily remains. Do you want to be cremated? Do you want to be buried? Do you have a plot? Where's the plot? I want to specifically go here. This is where I want to go. Very, very difficult to argue with that.
Right.
Good luck doing so. Good luck doing so. A lot of sometimes there's religious connotations for that, right? And that's where things can get heavy. For example, you may have I think there were 2 children who were Jewish. It wasn't a case of mine. And the father and the daughter was insistent that the father was not Orthodox. The son was insistent that he was Orthodox. Whatever, and he didn't put down instructions. That's a very important thing for the Jewish faith. Is if he was Orthodox, I mean, there's a specific time you have to be buried.
Right.
And the daughter said, no. You don't have time to play around there. You don't. You're running out of time. So, that's important. Why you have to write that down.
The bottom line, I think the very fundamental takeaway is plan. Get your plans in order. I mean, I know it's tough for a lot of people to contemplate dying and death, and it's not a topic that I think Americans really handle very well, but you can avoid a lot of heartache, hard feelings, having to pay Uncle Sam unnecessarily and all that sort of thing if you will just get yourself to someone like Neil's office and sit down and hammer out some of these details, and then as life evolves, make sure you check back in. And
right. Well, and God forbid you have young kids. How about you be obviously in control of where they end up?
Right.
Yeah. The number of new parents who don't have a will.
There's really good. I think we discussed it in the last podcast.
We did
too. There's pre-need guardian designations are extremely important. And actually, I was talking to another attorney who's a family law attorney, and said, she essentially agreed with me that that's where there can be kind of a breakdown in the communication with clients. Is it going to be your parents or my parents that are going to get these kids?
Right.
That can actually cause some problems.
Yep,
I'm sure.
And so discuss that before you actually get to my office, because I am in no position to mediate any kind of fighting like that. I can't do it.
Right.
But what you can count on is that in your role as a planner is you will anticipate all these sort of like we're paid to be paranoid and anticipate crazy things that can happen.
Yes.
And plan accordingly so that, if there's hard feelings between the in-laws, it's not for them to fight over. Anyway.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. That's right.
Well,
there's so many things we could talk about. No, we kept it on track. I'm proud. There's so many things we could talk about, but we'll have you on again, Neil, for sure. We know where to find you.
Well, I'll be my pleasure to talk about whatever you all want to talk about, and if you guys want to do this, that's what she pled after dark one day. I mean, we could really get into the weeds on stuff.
Oh, we're back to that. Okay.
I love the idea. I think it's great.
That's what she pled, AD. That's right.
AD.
After dark.
That's right.
In the year 2023 AD. Okay, so thank you. That's I think a wrap for today. We're so glad that our colleague Neil Lyons could join us.
It's fun. Thanks so much for having me on, y'all.
If you want to learn more about Neil, you can hit us up on our website, which is lawpoweredbywomen.com.
Right.
And obviously we've got stuff out there in the social media universe, Instagram. Anyway, join us again. Thanks, everybody. And
we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.